Hello YouTube. There are many interesting stories to be told across the Elder Scrolls series, but one of the more unknown and at the same time more controversial stories is the story of the Forgotten Hero, the protagonist in some of the stories of the Elder Scrolls Legends spin-off game. Now, today I'm going to specifically talk about the story of that game's main quest and what it added to the lore. Now, observant viewers will know that I already talked about this story once before, but I decided to remaster that old video here to correct some of the mistakes and fix some of the bad narration of my older videos. So, that said, strap yourselves in, as today we're talking about the Forgotten Hero again. So, the Elder Scrolls Legends' main story starts out somewhere in the year 174 of the 4th era, in the final years of the Great War. At this time, the Altmerry Dominion had conquered large parts of Cyrodiil, and to many it seemed obvious that it wouldn't be long until the Empire would be forced to surrender. The game itself starts somewhere in Dominion territory, where the story begins the same way as almost any other game in the series, with the protagonist finding themselves in imprisonment. The prison cell the hero is in is part of a complex filled with Daedra, and the Daedric commander, named Reeve, throws the protagonist into a fighting pit, pitted to fight against a fellow prisoner for the entertainment of the Daedra. The hero's opponent is a Nord named Tyr, and he doesn't really want to fight, but rather he wants to work together to escape the captors. The Forgotten Hero and Tyr team up, and they fight their way through the hordes of Daedra in the complex, and they eventually make their way to their commander Reeve, who, as you defeat him, rambles something about Lord Narafin, the overall commander of the Altmerry Dominion troops in Cyrodiil, and that Lord Narafin is planning to fulfill some Daedric culling prophecy on Cyrodiil. Tyr then reveals to you that he's one of the agents of the Blades organization and wants to investigate exactly what this culling prophecy is, because with the Empire already on the back foot in the war, something as ominous sounding as that could prove to be the final blow. Now, Tyr decides that the best first step to take is to find an old friend of his, a dark elf sorceress named Lyneth, who specializes herself in the Daedra and their magic, and thus she might know more about this ominous sounding prophecy. Now, the road to Lyneth is filled with peril, as the two heroes get ambushed by bandits who want their gold, gets ambushed by wolves who want to eat them, and get ambushed by Altmerry soldiers who were looking for a Blades member who escaped captivity. That Blades member that they were looking for is revealed to be Tyr, indicating that indeed the Altmerry Dominion is working with the Daedra that you just escaped earlier. Now, after a long and tiring journey, they finally reach Lyneth's house, which is suggested to be somewhere in the south of Cyrodiil. But surprise surprise, Lyneth isn't there. But you know who is there? More Daedra, and some mortal Daedric cultists waiting to ambush the two heroes. Now, after Tyr and the Forgotten Hero defeated these ambushing Daedra and their cultists, they interrogate one of the cultists, who then reveals that the sorceress has been kidnapped by them and has been put on a ship towards the Imperial city in order for her to help Altmerry Commander Lord Narafin to bring about this mysterious culling prophecy, against her will I should add. So Tyr and the Forgotten Hero decide to go after them. They hope to catch up to the cultists who had captured Lyneth by secretly boarding a smuggler's ship bound for the Imperial city. Now, as is becoming a bit of a pattern in this story, anything that can go wrong will go wrong, and first they are spotted by the smugglers who own the ship and they are forced to fight them, only to then stop fighting them and help the smugglers when they find a common enemy, as an Altmerry Dominion patrol comes to inspect the smuggler's ship, which, you know, both don't want, because the smugglers don't want their goods to get taken, and Tyr doesn't want to be killed as one of the Blades. For their help in fending off the authorities, the smugglers allow for them to sail with them, and they then start to sail northward towards the Imperial city. Unfortunately, it isn't smooth sailing for them, literally, as not only do they find themselves in a really bad storm, they also get attacked by pirates and are then shipwrecked. However, at this point luck finally starts to turn on our party of heroes, as they soon find that the cultists that were shipping Lyneth north also got caught up in the storm and seem to have shipwrecked as well. Now, Lyneth, who had been looking for an opportunity to escape, had used the chaos of the shipwreck to free herself. She had killed the remaining cultists and then fled into the forest on the mainland. Now, after fighting off some of the forest creatures together, the party finally gets to talk with Lyneth, who reveals that she'd learned that the Daedra and their cultists were working for Lord Narafin, who was planning to use the Daedric culling prophecy to deal one final blow to the Empire, and also kill almost all of the human population of Cyrodiil, likely to clean the land for the elves to resettle there after the war. Now, she also reveals what exactly this culling prophecy is, and It's a bit complicated. You see, by the 4th era, after the sacrifice of Martin Septim at the end of the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion, technically Nirn, the sort of planet Tamriel is on, should be safe against invasions by the Daedra from Oblivion. However, from the side of Tamriel, a door to Oblivion can still be opened to summon Daedra, to serve you with Daedric summon spells. So, while Oblivion can no longer invade Tamriel on their own initiative, Tamriel can still open the door for the Daedra. That being said, opening said door apparently costs a lot more energy or has become somehow more complicated since Martin's sacrifice, it seems. And that is where the culling prophecy comes into place. Because what Lord Narafin is planning to do is to sacrifice all non-elf inhabitants in the Imperial City, likely by siphoning off their life energy or something, although that aspect is never really truly explained, in order to open a lot of doors to Oblivion, to Cyrodiil, which would then spawn a lot of Daedric creatures, which could then overrun Cyrodiil and kill all the humans and put a final end to the Empire's resistance against the invasion. Having learned this, the group, now including Lyneth and one of the Argonian smugglers from earlier named Swims at Night, who just kinda decided to stick around for vibes, I guess, since his ship was destroyed anyway, so he didn't really have anywhere to go. This merry band of heroes decides that the best course of action is to warn the Emperor of Narafin's plot. But the Emperor at this time was kind of a hard man to reach, as at this point he now commands his troops from Skyrim after the Imperial City got taken by the Altmeri Dominion, so the group decides to travel even further north to Skyrim. After some more trials and tribulations, among which was a fight against some Imperial deserters who tried to kill them, the group encounters one of Tyr's old associates, a legate of the Imperial Legion named Cassia, who had been roaming the wilds with her soldiers in order to hunt down deserters. After Tyr tells her of what they know, Legate Cassia and her men immediately escort them to the Emperor. The group then tells the Emperor everything that they know, and the Emperor is horrified by this new information. Now, those of you who know a thing or two about the Great War know that at this point in the story, likely around the year 174 of the 4th era, the end of that year, the Empire wasn't doing super well. They had lost almost half of Cyrodiil to the Altmeri Dominion, and they had amassed enormous losses after somehow the Altmeri Dominion seemed to know exactly what the Empire was going to do with every turn, ambushing their legions around every corner and preventing counterattacks before they even got underway. So let's just say that the Empire was pretty desperate at this point and pretty close to surrendering, and I really recommend watching my old remastered video on the Great War if you want to know exactly how desperate they were. That video is in the description, by the way. It gives a good overview of the greater situation on the continent during this story. Now, the Emperor decides that if Lord Narafin's plan would be allowed to come to fruition, it would be the end. Not just for the war, but also for Cyrodiil itself, and possibly also the other human provinces, considering, the Altmeri Dominion's goal of bringing back Elvish dominance to the continent. So even if the Empire was in a state where it should surrender and any plan would be doomed to fail, a last-ditch effort to retake the Imperial City and prevent Lord Narafin from executing his plans had to be undertaken. So, a quick plan is hatched, and the Emperor and his staff are going to recall as many of the remaining troops from every front and every reserve that they have to call for an all-out last-ditch attack on the Imperial City. Meanwhile, a secret scouting party would infiltrate the Imperial City and try to find out as much as they could about how Lord Narafin had been able to predict the Empire's every move so far. Obviously, our hero and his merry band, now strengthened by Legate Cassia, are picked to be this small strike team, and this infiltration attempt is actually quite successful, since the Argonian smuggler, who stuck around for vibes, knew a lot of smuggling tunnels, which even the Imperial Legion and the Altmeri occupiers did not know about. This included a tunnel from a place close to the Imperial City Arena, right to the Imperial Palace in the White Gold Tower, where Lord Narafin had his command post. So, our merry band of heroes posed as arena fighters to gain access to the city, and they then slipped into the old smuggler tunnel. They sneaked through the palace towards Narafin's study, where they were shocked to find the legendary Daedric artifact, and the source of the Altmeri Dominion's incredible foresight, the Orb of Vermina, a Daedric artifact which allows one to view any place on Nirn from a distance. This explained everything about the Dominion's strange advantage, and the Forgotten Hero tried to quickly slip the Orb of Vermina into their bag in order to bring it to the Emperor. But just as they were about to quietly leave again the way they came, Lord Narafin entered the room, together with the Daedric commander Reeve from earlier in the story. After a quick skirmish, Reeve manages to put his blade at Tyr's neck, threatening to kill the man if the Forgotten Hero does not return the Orb of Vermina to Lord Narafin. The player then gets to make a choice: keep the orb, which you then get as a pretty good card for your deck, or give the Lord to Narafin, which frees Tyr and also get his card for your deck. But if you do that, if you free Tyr, Tyr then quickly grabs the orb and shatters it before Narafin can react. Now, no matter what happens, the mission to take away Narafin's advantage is successful, as either Tyr dies and you have the orb, or Tyr lives and he shatters the orb, so Lord Narafin no longer has the orb. So then our band of heroes, with or without Tyr, fights their way out of the Imperial Palace, defeating Reeve in the process and getting his blade, the blade Goldbrand, which is also a legendary Daedric artifact of the Daedric Prince Boethia. Interestingly, this blade and Reeve's dialogue are the final hints that we get that it was indeed Boethia, Daedric Prince of Plot and Cruelty, who was working with the Altmerry Dominion to bring the Culling Prophecy to fruition, as Reeve admits during the fight to serve Boethia. Now, what exactly the Dominion offered Boethia in exchange for their help, I don't know. Either way, the band of heroes fights their way through the Imperial City, likely using old smuggler tunnels to escape. When they return to the Emperor, who's now camped out in northern Cyrodiil with his troops, they find out that Altmerry Dominion assassins had infiltrated the Emperor's camp and had killed his guards in an attempt to murder the Emperor himself. However, our band of heroes arrives just in time to put down the assassins. The Emperor, however, is gravely wounded in this skirmish, and while he will survive the ordeal, he's in no shape to walk or much less fight, which is quite detrimental to the attack on the Imperial City, as the gathered troops at the camp were supposed to start retaking Cyrodiil the next day, and not having the Emperor among the troops would likely be very bad for morale in an already very demoralized army, which presumed itself to be in a disadvantage. So, the Emperor then asks the Forgotten Hero for a favor. He asks the hero to wear the Emperor's armor and pretend to be the Emperor during the attack on the Imperial City to keep up morale, so the troops think that the Emperor is fighting alongside them. The Forgotten Hero agrees, and the next day the assault on Cyrodiil begins, starting the Battle of the Red Ring, the final battle of the Great War. Without the Orb of Vermina in the Dominion's hands, the Empire could properly attack for the first time with the element of surprise. And as you can see in my video on the Great War, within a few days they retake the city and crush the Altmerry Dominion's troops around the city. At the very end of the battle, as the Legionnaires are fighting their way into the city, the game's protagonists are on the front lines, making their way to the Imperial Palace, where they catch Lord Narafin in a last-ditch effort to activate the Culling Prophecy. The heroes then fight Lord Narafin in the final battle of the game, and defeat him, preventing the Culling Prophecy from being fulfilled. The Forgotten Hero then celebrates his victory in the Emperor's armor along with the troops, but soon would quietly leave the city, after which the Emperor himself would return to the public. Because of this switch, the actions of the Forgotten Hero would come to be forgotten by history, earning him the name of Forgotten Hero. And that was the main story of the Elder Scrolls Legends, and I have to say I personally really like this story, although I do know that many people don't like that it added the whole Orb of Vermina and Daedra thing, which kind of made the Altmerry Dominion seem weaker than it was and the Empire stronger than it was in Skyrim's lore. While I understand that perspective, I personally kind of disagree, because we already knew that the Altmerry Dominion had to be a bit smaller in terms of army size than the Imperial army, and we know that the High Elves are far more skilled in magic than most humans and have far more knowledge on all things Daedra. So while I get the sentiment that it changes some things about the war and that isn't all too fun, it really isn't out of character in my opinion. But hey, that's just me. Let me know what you think in the comments. Also, I covered every other Elder Scrolls Legends story on this channel as well, and I might soon make a big compilation video about the other stories in the game, including this video. But if you don't want to wait for that compilation, I have a description of this video which is full of other stories which will be in that compilation, because there's the full story to the Dark Brotherhood questline of the Elder Scrolls Legends, the Clockwork City questline, and the Shivering Isles questline. All of them are pretty good, but especially the Shivering Isles questline is really good. That story is easily in my top 10 Elder Scrolls stories of all time, so I really recommend giving it a watch. Anyway, I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, I hope you will consider returning for the next Elder Scrolls lore video on the channel, probably next week. And maybe subscribe to the channel, that would be nice. Also liking, because that's how YouTube decides that my content is worthy. So, hey, maybe do that. Now, all that remains for me to be done is to thank my top Patreon subscribers, Mr. Bernardo Binda, His Soul, Gabriel Binda, Athena Iodis, Doji, Fenrir, King Chris, Pavel T, Penta McGuire, Volkir of Argonia, Leo Worley, and Sword of Bushido. They and all the others on screen keep this channel alive, and for that I'm eternally grateful. That said, I will see all of you in the next Elder Scrolls lore video. Bye bye.